News Talk on demand. Interruption-free audio where you want it, when you want it.
Good morning, wherever you are in Saskatchewan. I'm Murray Wood, sitting in for John Gormley. John is taking a day off. He'll be back with you on Monday. This is the first Friday in December, which means Christmas is almost upon us. Maybe for you it's already here. Still ahead on the show today. Friday means the last word, the week's ultimate open phones. We check in with our movie critic Craig Silliphant a bit later on what's hot at the box office, the new George Clooney movie, getting a lot of attention today. And you're going to meet some people who chose rural Saskatchewan as a home because they like this weather. They love winter. In fact, they wish it would get colder. You're going to hear from them. They've written a book about they actually spent a winter north of the Arctic Circle on purpose, by choice. They paid money to be there. And they think too few Canadians celebrate winter. We'll find out their story and have that discussion as well. Do you, in Saskatchewan, do you embrace winter or try to escape it? That's still ahead. Up first, though, it was 1 week ago today that one Saskatchewan family's dark drama came to a close, well, at least for now. Trevor Dimen was sentenced to just over 6 more years in jail for the killing of his elderly father, William. About a year and a half ago, Trevor Dimen went to his parents' home in Regina. His mother fled the house. She was found outside with an injured knee, but she said she heard her son say, "He's dead." 41-year-old Trevor Dimen claimed he and his father had gotten into a dispute. They'd wrestled, fell down the stairs, and his father hit his head on the concrete floor. Now, in most families, this would be viewed as a horrible, tragic, but accidental outcome to a loss of temper. But Dimen's family, including his own brother, say they weren't surprised, and that given Dimen's history, he really shouldn't have been free to terrorize his family, because they say that's what he did. He terrorized his family. Dimen's brother, Daryl, has decided he wants to speak about this. He's on the line now from his home in Montreal. You're going to hear his story. Then I'd be interested in your thoughts. Does the justice system bear some responsibility, as family members have indicated, for the fact that Trevor Dimen was not in custody on that fateful day? Should we be doing more to ensure people with a history of violent acts and aggression are, whenever possible, kept in some form of custody? As you hear Daryl Dimen describe, you may conclude that Trevor Dimen should have been, if not in jail, at least in some sort of institution. Well, the phone lines are open to you as always at 1-877-332-TALK, 1-877-332-8255. Daryl Dimen joins me on the line from Montreal. Daryl, thanks for taking my call today.
Hi.
So, Daryl, why did you decide you wanted to speak today?
Well, I guess, I guess I don't have the answers to solve this serious problem that my family has experienced. But I guess I'd like to start off from the beginning, is that the police can only do so much. They can't be your personal bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, to me, it boils down to our laws in Canada. Anyways, it's been a very eye-opening experience, among other things, to my family and to a lot of people that know us. To how helpless law-abiding people can be.
How helpless they can be.
Yeah, how helpless we can be. Yeah, for sure.
Well, when I spoke to you the other day and we talked about bringing you on the program, you said there were a couple of things you really wanted to speak to. In terms of the concerns that you had. And you made it very clear. You didn't want to blame police. You thought police had done all that they could, but you felt that they had been handcuffed, in a sense, in terms of trying to do their job, to deal with your brother. Maybe we can just back up a bit before we get to that point, Daryl. Tell me about your brother, the history that your family had with him.
Well, he's always been volatile, unpredictable, very explosive temper. And, he just, at a younger age, we just thought he would grow out of it. We thought there's a time, okay, he's going to, grow up eventually, and it just never happened. And so when it got to the stage where, when he got to his early 20s, we figured, well, to our surprise, it just got worse. And it just got worse, and the older he got, the worse it got. And just more violent and more dangerous. There was over 30 members of my family, like relatives and family, that had signed a peace bond against him. Like a peace. Can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's a peace bond. One that's a no contact order, where if he contacts any one of us in any way or form, we can call the police, and then he would be apprehended.
Over 30 members of your family actually swore out a peace bond against your brother because, why? They were afraid of him?
Well, you just can't go put a peace bond because you want to. You have to go, you have to go to the police, and you have to, make a statement, and you have to have good reason. You have to have some sort of evidence or reason to have one placed on someone. And, every, family members came in with recorded phone conversations, voicemails that were left by Trevor where he made threats and, in some cases was violent towards my family or family members or relatives,
So 30 different members of your family, though, were able to show police just cause, and as a result, peace bonds were sworn out against your brother. He literally, it sounds like, was unable to see any of his family by law.
Pretty much, yeah. But that didn't stop him.
That didn't stop him?
No. See, I guess one of the things there that, your question earlier about, what it is that, I wanted to, the public to know. And one of those things is this, it works to a certain point. The police, the Regina police themselves, if I can start off by saying, in 1996, my brother came to my home and he assaulted me there. And after the assault and after he was convicted, he got a suspended sentence. He showed up at my workplace and he had told me that he was going to kill myself and my ex-wife at the time for having him charged and for making statements against him. And we went to the Regina City Police right away, and we discussed with them in depth of what took place and how he's showing up at work, threatening me and stuff. And the police were very. They said they told us that it really wasn't worth having a peace bond put on him because it's just going to annoy him or. Excuse the language, would piss him off even more.
Yeah, but it's against the law to threaten to kill somebody. Couldn't he have been charged with uttering threats at least?
Yeah, the only thing is that's the thing. It's like maybe on TV, a lot of things, like I said, that have come to light from this trial that the way trials are done in Canada is nothing like you see on TV and nothing like you see on the news in the States, for instance. A lot of the history that Trevor has done, including my assault in 1996, which was very similar to my father, where he was killed. It's very similar, but I wasn't really able to talk about that during the trial.
Right. Of course, that wouldn't be allowed to be brought in during the trial because the judge has to hear evidence based on this particular case, not on previous incidents.
Yeah, and the thing is, but that's.
But at sentencing, it can be included, as now the judge can look at the man's history, right?
Yeah, exactly. So. But anyways, I guess, so where we're at there is the police, they, like I said, they told us that, look, with their experience, they said, it's not going to stop them from, the peace bond not going to stop them from coming back and harming us. They just felt that with their experience that it was, we're better off just, ignoring it and going away. And so that's what I did. At that point, it was maybe a day or two later, I decided to pack up my stuff, sell my home, and I moved to the Yukon Territories to put some distance between me and him.
Did that work?
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, I'm alive today, and I've been here, like I said, I was there for 14 years. There was a point where he did come to Yukon to tell me he could find me, so he did show up there one day, and then he left the next.
But he traveled all the way to
Yes.
Whitehorse or wherever it was in Yukon just to say, I know where you are.
Yeah.
That must have been slightly disconcerting, considering you moved halfway across the country to get away from him.
Well, it is, but, there again, I had people calling me, people that didn't even know me calling me. And how they got a hold of me was they called the Yukon a small place, and they started asking around. and they found somebody that knew me, and then that person left a message and said that, hey, you're supposed to call this person. So I called this person, and this person informed me that, that Trevor had been, which is my brother, he had been telling his staff and himself that he was on his way up to the Yukon to do me harm. So I had a heads up. Of course, we called the RCMP, give them the history. We wanted, we wanted to document it, that the fact that this was going on, but of course that never happened. And the other thing too is, like the RCMP said, hey, we can't stand vigil outside your place. So my wife and I were forced to discuss, how are we going to protect ourselves? How are we going to protect our children? If he does show up, and that's not a very good feeling to know that you're on your own, and that you may have to take some sort of action to defend yourself.
Daryl, stay with me, won't you please? I'm speaking with Daryl Dimen, lives in Montreal now, formerly of Saskatchewan. As you just heard, moved to the Yukon to get away from his brother Trevor Dimen after his brother had assaulted him and threatened him, he said, with his life. Trevor Dimen, of course, as we speak, is in jail. He's appealed his conviction and sentence, but was sentenced 1 week ago to just over 6 additional years in jail for manslaughter in the death of his father, William Dimen, who died after an altercation with Trevor a year and a half ago in William's home.
Believing in a lot of people may have been a mistake.
That was Trevor Dimen during one of his court appearances leading up to his conviction for manslaughter in the death of his father, William, a year and a half ago. 1 week ago today, Trevor Dimen was sentenced to 6 years, 8 more months in jail for the killing of his father. Let me just replay that clip where he said, believing in other people may have been a mistake.
Believing in a lot of people may have been a mistake.
Believing in a lot of people may have been a mistake. Trevor Dimen conducted his own defense during his trial, didn't say anything to reporters after he had been convicted. His brother Daryl is speaking out today, saying his brother Trevor was a violent person with a long history of aggression against his family. 30 different family members had gotten peace bonds to keep Trevor Dimen away from them. He was not surprised when he learned that his brother had been involved in the death of his father. He says his brother Trevor should not have been free. You just heard Daryl talk about how after being assaulted by his brother, he fled to the Yukon to get away, to protect his wife and family. And his brother made a point of coming up there to let him know that he'd found him. Daryl Dimen is on the line with me. Daryl, as I listen to your story and the history of violence, and there have been other, I know that there are other things that you haven't talked about yet in terms of violence against your family. A reasonable person can ask the question, why was your brother free? Why wasn't he in some sort of custody?
Well, that's a good question. In some cases, I guess in my case, for instance, when he assaulted me in my home and he had a suspended sentence. See, I knew he was convicted, but I didn't know it was a suspended sentence. And I wasn't going to sit there in court and watch either. That's just going to, I need to stay far away from him as I can, right? So anyways, with a suspended sentence, what I found out now is that, I could have contacted the police or contacted the right authorities and told them that, look, he's come and threatened me. Yes, I did contact the police to put a peace bond on, but the connection wasn't made. I didn't know to tell the police that he just had a suspended sentence, and apparently with a suspended sentence, he could have been apprehended again.
But at some point, so he assaulted you.
Yes.
30 members of your family had taken up peace bonds.
Yes.
He took an axe. Is this correct? He took an axe to your aunt's house?
The windows of her house right while she was right while she was at home. But the thing is, yes, the thing is, see, he moved around lots. He moved around lots sometimes in some cases to avoid the law. When he kind of outstayed his welcome, so to speak, in a certain area and caused enough trouble, he would move on to another place. And so, it's pretty hard for the police to keep track of him that way. And he himself had told me in the past, when he was in the Lower Mainland, after beating some people up and doing a few things like that, he, the police had, he knew the police were on his tail, so he would leave and go somewhere else.
It's hard to serve a warrant on somebody without an address.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that's the thing. It's hard to in the defense of the police again. It's hard it's hard to get somebody, or it's hard to even prosecute somebody that doesn't have an address,
All right, so your brother said in court the only one that got hurt was me, and said that in the death of his father that he himself was a victim. The judge viewed that as callous, but your brother is going to be out conceivably, and if he got a 6-year sentence, 3 or 4 years tops.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, we'll worry about that in 6 years. I guess for now we can breathe a sigh of relief for at least the time he's going to be in prison, right? And when he gets out, I guess we'll have to be on our guard.
Should he have been put away longer, in your opinion? Should he? Is he the sort of person who should be looked at as some sort of violent offender?
Well, yes, I think so, because part of to answer one of your earlier questions as well is that, you see, I mean, he knows. I mean, he's had enough experience with the law. He's not a stupid person in that respect. He knows how to get away with. He knows how to manipulate the system. He's shown that very clearly in different ways. The other thing is, he has, as far as the sentence goes.
Sorry, Daryl, tell you what, I want you to hold that thought. I'm going to bring you back after the top of the hour. I want to let Daryl make sort of a final thought on his brother to kickstart the debate. I'm Murray Wood in for John Gormley. It is Friday, time for the last word, the week's ultimate open phones. A chance for you to weigh in on topics from throughout the week that you may not have had a chance to get in on. Things that are in the news cycle and the talk cycle today, or, as I always say, things that you aren't hearing about or reading about, but you're thinking about them, and you think others should be talking about them as well. The phone lines are open to you, as always, at 1-877-332-TALK, 1-877-332-8255. I have the list of the shows from the week. We'll talk about things in the cycle. Before we get there, I want to finish off with the topic we've begun the show with, and certainly this should generate some discussion, I think, in open phones. Gormley Dimen is with me on the line from Montreal. Daryl's brother Trevor, 1 week ago today, was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months for manslaughter in the death of their father, William Dimen. About a year and a half ago, Trevor Dimen had gone to the house. The judge found that he trespassed, gotten into a dispute with his father. His mother was found outside on the ground with an injured knee. She recalled hearing her son, Trevor, who's 41, say, "That's it, it's over, he's dead." Now, Trevor was the only person who was alive to testify as to exactly what happened. His version was that they wrestled, they fell down the stairs, his father struck his head on the pavement, he suffered severe brain damage and was taken off life support in hospital. Taken in isolation, you might say, what a horrible, horrible, tragic accident to happen during a family dispute when tempers got too hot. You might say that taken in isolation. But when you put this in context, family members say this is completely typical of Trevor Dimen. They weren't surprised at all to hear what had happened, that he had threatened family members for years, had threatened to harm his father, had threatened to kill other family members. Daryl says 30 different members of his extended family had gotten peace bonds sworn out because they were afraid of Trevor Dimen, who for years had terrorized his family. So Daryl chose to speak out today because he wants people to understand how difficult it can be to have somebody like Trevor Dimen locked up, even if you think they should be. And he feels very strongly that his brother should have been in some form of custody, that his father would still be alive. Daryl, do you feel that the system, the justice system in some fashion, failed your family?
Yeah, totally. That's where it failed. It's the justice system, totally. Because, like you asked an earlier question about, the sentence and what I thought was fair. Well, for one, how can a guy tell people for years and, tell countless people that he's going to maim or paralyze or kill his father, kill his brother, and then follow through with it in some way, and then, get off on 10 years. He told many people, including, we do have knowledge of him telling a police officer as well, a Regina City police officer, that he was going to kill my father, hurt my father. And there's that also, as well as when my assault took place with me, he tried to maim me, he tried to disfigure me, and the arresting police officers at the time, he beat me literally close to half an hour until the police showed up, and he continued until the police literally had to step in to stop him. And I mean, that's all on file, but we could use very little of this in the actual trial.
So when you say the justice system, I mean, that's a pretty big. What part of the justice system let you down? Was it the Crown prosecutors? Was it the police?
No, the prosecutor. I feel Chris White, the prosecutor. I think he did a good job. I think with what he had to deal with. I just there's things in place with the system that it protects the defendant or the criminal. That's it seems that they have more rights than we do.
So you feel it's less the people in the system than the system, and some basic fundamental changes need to be made to the rules as to how people are dealt with?
Yeah, I guess. Like I said, I don't have the answers. I guess I don't know enough about it. I just, I guess I guess I just like everybody else. I want to move on. I just kind of, go on with my life, so to speak. But after this, I don't know what we can do. That's all I'm saying. I just don't know what we can do to. I don't have the right answers. So I don't have the answer for it. All I know is that we found that he had more rights than we did.
All right, Daryl Dimen, any closing thought you'd like to make on this?
Well, I guess I just said it. I don't have the answers. So I don't know. I'm not educated enough in that area to know what and where or what can be done. But all I know is I feel as far as law enforcement goes, they did everything they could. I think we did everything we could. Just what boils down to, I don't know. It's we've got to be able to do more than give soccer moms speeding tickets and keeping drunks off the street. We have to do something. I don't think we're alone. I think there's other cases. I've heard of other cases in Canada that people have experienced similar, maybe not quite as harsh, but when somebody is clearly a loose wheel and is violent and has a history of violence, and it's really amazing that they slip through the cracks. So,
right. Well, Daryl, I know that there's at least one person listening, and I'm guessing a whole bunch more, who may not have a situation as dramatic as your family experienced, but has experienced some family violence, may be in fear of a family member. Is there some advice from your experience that you would give them? If you could go back, is there something you would do differently?
Well, you know what? I don't think there is anything we could have done differently other than, like for instance, well, I don't know what to say about that. If he shows up at your place and if you do anything, you're a criminal, so other than, because by the time the police get there, you call them and it's going to be too late, and in my dad's case, there's a talk, the version that I hear you saying about, the dispute, and there was an argument between my father and my brother and so on and so forth. That's Trevor's story. That's his story. He came to my parents' house to terrorize him. My parents were calm, and they were hoping, they just want him to go away. My dad went to help my mom. My brother was after my mom. My dad had no choice but to help my mom. He was not aggressive towards Trevor, and then he ended up dead. Like I said, he didn't care. He didn't care if the police would have been on their way, it wouldn't have made a difference. So anyways, as far as advice to other people, like I said again, I'm sorry I'm lost for words on that because I feel we did everything we could with what we have, other than taking the law into our own hands, which we don't want to do.
But the only other thing you can do is what you're doing right now, Trevor, or Daryl rather, which is to speak out. Yes. And talk about the situation and hope that as more people do speak out and talk about these situations, that the people who make our laws hear this and start to address issues surrounding violent offenders. Exactly. I guess that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm talking about it now. It's because that way, like I said, I guess people do hear, the reality of it, that, because I do have people asking, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? But I just found that people are somewhat, I guess, ignorant of the law and how the judicial system works. And we were too. We're it's a little late now, but we learned a lot through this process in the last year and a half in the trial and stuff. It was a big learning experience for us. Right, and things that you may need to know in a few years when your brother's out of jail again. Yeah, well, maybe we're hoping things will be different now because of the media coverage. I have to say, a day after my father was killed, a close friend of mine who's a peace officer in Canada had called me up and said, "Hey, Daryl, if you want something done about this guy, you need to get the media involved because he just felt that
he felt somewhat powerless to do anything else, and he felt that with public pressure, it will make our government somewhat more accountable. So now the way I feel, I mean, this is my personal opinion, but now I feel because of this and because of my family, myself, the media coverage and whatnot, now people are going to be a little more accountable when he gets out, and if he hurts somebody again, which I'm pretty sure he will.
You're pretty sure he will hurt somebody again?
Without a doubt. In court, I could see it in his eyes. I could see it in his face. He showed no remorse. When I had to testify with him there in court, I could see it in his face. I could see the hatred, and I could see it just all came back.
Well, Daryl, my condolences to you and your family for the loss of your father. I guess for now your family can at least take some comfort knowing that your brother is behind bars, but sounds like it's short-lived comfort.
Well, yeah, I'll take it as it comes. Put it that way. I'm like I said. I guess I have to say that I for what we had to work with, I'm happy with the verdict.
All right, listen, Daryl, appreciate you being here today and telling your story, and all the best, and please stay in touch.
You betcha. Thank you.
All right, Daryl Dimen joining me on the line today from, he now lives in Montreal, lived in Regina, fled Regina, as you heard Daryl say some 13 years or so ago, after being assaulted viciously by his brother Trevor. Fled to the Yukon because he was concerned for the safety of his then wife and children. His brother tracked him down in the Yukon, let him know that he knew where he was, and said there was a history. The attack that killed his father wasn't an inexplicable outburst. Daryl says for years he had been threatening his father and other family members. 30 different family members had taken out peace bonds. And the police told him, peace bonds don't do very much, really, if the person doesn't choose to honor them. So Daryl Dimen isn't angry at police. He says they did their best. He thinks the Crown prosecutor did his best. He wishes the sentence had been a little longer, but they understand that there's a normal range for sentencing. But overall, they'd like to see changes made so that people with a history of violence, such as Trevor Dimen, are more easily kept either behind bars or in some sort of institution. Now, we've gone some ways down that road in Canada with dangerous offender legislation and violent offender legislation. The bar is pretty high. I'm not a lawyer. I couldn't tell you if Trevor Dimen would have met the bar, whether the Crown at some point should have been seeking this or should be seeking this now. But the contention of the family is, here's somebody with a history of offenses. Why was he still out to be free? Why did everybody they speak to empathize but effectively shrug? So they have questions about the system. Maybe you do as well. We'll start off the last word, the week's ultimate phones, on that. You may want to pick up on the case of Trevor Dimen. Did the justice system fail the Dimen family? Should Trevor, the history of violence, the threats against his family, should he have been in custody? Or is it too easy just to blame the big system whenever something goes wrong? Phone lines are open, 1-877-332-TALK, 1-877-332-8255. Other issues of the week, and there's a bunch of them. The new smoking legislation introduced by the government this week, banning smoking in cars when children are present, banning smoking in a number of places, but failing to follow through on a pledge to ban smoking in decks and patios. You may have some thoughts on that. Banning the sale of tobacco in pharmacies, by the way, was another one. The session ended yesterday, a tough session for the government. How's the government doing? Tiger Woods, the tiger fixation. You can weigh in on that. Welcome back. I'm Murray Wood in for John Gormley. It is the last word, the week's ultimate open phones. Anything and everything on your mind from the week that was, and what a week it was, too. Starting off with that awful, horrible, terrible feeling on Monday morning. I'm finally starting to get over it, I think. The worst Grey Cup ever. Could have been perhaps one of the best Grey Cups ever, but the way it ended. Oh. So, to be honest, I didn't even want to talk about it for a few days. I don't know how much you want to talk about it today, but I throw it out there, just there for you. And there's been some suggestion that the riders should drop the logo of the 13th man. Should they? We'll talk about that a bit as we go on. The legislative session ended yesterday. How's the government doing? Tough session, actually, for the government comparatively. Managing well, do you think, on the potash downturn, or getting caught overspending and unprepared for such a downturn? The smoking measures announced this week, in the notable absence of one that the government had indicated it wanted to move on, the health minister at least did, which was banning smoking on decks and patios. I wish they'd gone through with it. Some people disagree. You can weigh in on that. And what else from the week? 1-877-332-TALK, 1-877-332-8255. Now, we just finished having a long conversation with Daryl Dimen, brother of Trevor Dimen, who was sentenced last week to just over 6 years for manslaughter in the death of his father. The judge found that Dimen had trespassed in the family home, he had assaulted his mother, and assaulted his father. He gave him a sentence that actually is at the high end of the range. But he wanted to give him 10 years, but with time served, it wound up being about 6 years and 8 months. And his brother, Daryl, says, well, he wasn't surprised. Nobody in the family was surprised. Trevor Dimen's been threatening and assaulting people in his family for years. And feels the justice system let them down. He thinks the people within the system did the best they could, but they were effectively handcuffed by not being able to pick this guy up at times because he didn't have an address they could go find him at, by any number of different issues. But ultimately, it led to him being out and the death of his father. You may have some thoughts on that. The phone lines are open at 1-877-332-TALK, 1-877-332-8255. Let's start with Eileen in North Battleford. Eileen, did the justice system let down the Dimen family?
They definitely did. I am very, very shocked at why, at his teenage years, he wasn't given help in mentally. He needs help. He does not need jail. Jail's not going to do anything for him. And with medication, he will be right back on his tracks like I know others have.
I don't know for sure. I've heard it anecdotally that there was medication that may or may not have been followed, but I don't know that for a fact. I do know that he was tested a couple of times, the family says, and whatever the result of that was, it wasn't enough to put him into any sort of institution. And I think a lot of people hearing the story, and maybe it's easier in hindsight, Eileen, but I think a lot of people hearing the story would probably agree with you.
Definitely. They can keep trying, especially when he was so dangerous, and everybody afraid of him. They could have kept on trying and just, Anyway, I'm very, very shocked, and yeah, he's a good man. He needs help. Okay, thank you.
Eileen is listening to this in Martinsville. Eileen, did the justice system fail the Dimen family?
I believe so. I'm wondering why he isn't being considered for an institution for the criminally insane. Like, perhaps this man is a schizophrenic. Has he ever been tested?
His brother says he was tested. I don't know the exact medical details of what the determination was, but clearly it wasn't enough to
well, that's too
reach
bad,
the sort of conclusion that you're talking about.
In an institution like that, he would spend the rest of his life there, and the rest of his family could go on living in a safe manner. Because this way, their lives are in danger all the time.
So what do you conclude, though? I mean, and specifically, you can say, well, gee, he may be dealing with some mental issues, but yeah, you have somebody who had a list of 14 different offenses. A lot of them are minor, but other things that may not have led to charges, things like smashing out the windows in his aunt's home with an axe when she's home. At what point should the justice system be able to say, we think maybe you're dangerous?
I don't know. Do they not have enough already to think that?
Well,
what do they need? More people to die?
I don't know. Even now, so far, there's no move to make him a dangerous offender or a violent offender, something that would effectively keep him in custody for an indefinite period of time, requiring periodic reviews. Why not? I think that's probably a fair question, given what we've heard today. You may have some thoughts on that. Bob wants to talk about the Riders and the 13th man.